This is me tying the fly that I use at Sealey Lake. This is the hook that I'm using. It's a number 6, 3 times long. It's a good hook for the application for this lake. I'm using a red bead on the lake, on the hook. For some reason, the trout in this lake love red color. They like brownish, reddish fly, as far as I've discovered. The wine color feathers there, that is the majority of what the fly is going to be. They really seem to like that color. I have caught probably over 100 trout at Sealey Lake with this particular one fly. And I mean, it's just a woolly bugger for those people that are familiar with flies. It's a very common fly, but the colors and the combinations seem to work well. Okay, so I'm just going to put down a basic thread on the hook and move on to the next step. And that's my mongoose vise. I really like that vise. It works very well for complicated and simple flies, this being one of the more simpler ones. There we go, the base is done on the fly now. I'm going to bring the thread up forward by the bead so I can tie in the sparkly flash. And I will turn the fly from time to time to give you guys a side profile. Okay, now I'm going to cut the rest of the thread off. Off camera, I'm getting a piece of flash ready. It's sort of under the vise there where my finger is right now. What I do is I split it in half, and then I split it in half again, and I cut the one loop at the very back, and the front loop will get tied into the fly. I put it maybe 1/8 of an inch behind the red bead, and the beads are tungsten steel, so this is a very heavy sinking fly. This size of a fly is really great for a number 6 rod, is what I've found. For me, anyway. Some of the fish in that lake require a number 6 rod. I was dragged around on my pontoon boat for about a half an hour years ago because I brought a number 4 with me and I could not bring the fish close enough to net him without him wanting to break my rod in half. Okay, well there, the flash is tied in. It's very common stuff. Get this on Amazon. Here comes the wine colored feathers, the marabou. I'm just putting a bunch of it together and measuring it out so the tail of the fly is about half to almost 3/4 the length of the hook. And in a second here you'll see me tying it on. There it is. It's about half to almost the length of the hook, or 3/4. Somewhere around there, something that looks fairly proportionate. Once it gets wet, it sort of turns into just kind of a leechy looking thing. And there I'm tying it in. There it goes over the entire length. And I'm bringing the thread up to about halfway down the hook to the bead. I'm going to trim off the axis feather. And I bought this stuff by chance at a local fishing store. Once I tried a brownish red fly, it worked well, but not as well as this fly. I mean, every time I go there in a matter of 4 hours, I usually go through 25 to 30 trout. A lot of them get off the hook, they jump and spit it out. I'll have video later of the actual fishing. Okay, now I'm going to tie in, and I will show you guys this. It's like a sparkly thread chenille stuff, but it's short length, and I wrap this down the entire body of the fly. I think I might be answering a text at this point and recording the soundtrack after the next day after filming the actual video. There it is. I bought the stuff on Amazon. It came, I think, in 9 rolls of different colors. It's really great stuff for giving a textured sort of a sparkly look to the body of the fly. And the fish like it because when they grab it, it's something soft and it feels like it's actual fleshy food instead of like a hard sort of a steel surface, I guess. Which means they hold on a little longer. I'm going to tie the thread off right now. And there I can put the thread up front on the bobbin holder and wrap that stuff around the fly. Give it a nice sparkly shiny body. And that's where this vise is just great. The amount of amazing difficult flies that I built on this thing is just phenomenal. It's never let me down in the most difficult application possible. And that's probably why they put their name on top of the arm there, so that no matter how you film, you always get it. I wasn't going to put a piece of tape over it or anything, so there it is. Okay, I'm going to tie off that chenille, bring the thread back up to the forward, and this is where the hackle feather is going to come in. I'm just going to trim that. And that's what the fly looks like from both sides right now. Of course, once it's wet, that tail is not going to look like that. It's going to look like a big, long, furry leech. Or a big, furry, delicious insect if you were a fish. Being that the majority of their diet consists of insects and aquatic life, this thing is just triggering them like crazy. And size does matter in this lake because the fish in there get really, really big. I mean, for the size of the lake, there are some monsters in there. And I guess I'm digging out a hackle feather right now because I forgot to get one ready when I started. Okay, well there it is. There's the hackle feather. And I'm going to strip the back part of the feather. And then what I usually do is I leave a stem and I feed it through the bead up front. There it goes. And that way when I'm done tying off the front of the bead before the 2 knots, it's a second kind of a grabbing point, third grabbing point for the feather. As you can see, the stem is just kind of hanging out beside the bead. Now I'm going to wrap the thread all the way back to the end. And I bump the camera. There we go, a couple more turns. And now I'm going to get the hackle pliers and try and get that feather wound on without it breaking. Usually they break several times and annoy the living daylights out of you. There it goes. Yep, annoying. Yeah, I put a piece of white paper over top of the black vise so you guys can see the fly and what I'm doing to it. But this thing works amazing in that lake. I mean, it's usually one after another kind of thing. And every time I go, I limit out at least 3 times and keep the nicest ones for dinner. And that's what that lake is for. It's stocked. It's for eating fish. Well, there it goes. And that is a nice furry looking body that no trout can resist. So I'm going to tie off that end. Just like that. I'm going to bring the thread forward, zigzagging it through the furry feather. Like that. And I'm going to pull off the rest of the feather. And this is where we have to jump the bead. Put a bunch of wraps on there and then tie it off. And I'm going to cut that little feather off right there. And that's more or less good enough. I mean, it is what it is. No fly is perfect, and neither is an insect. So there we go. I'm going to tie off the thread twice, I think. And then I'm going to use the bobbin and the lacquer to seal up all the tie-off points for the thread. There we go. That's a good knot. Okay, and now you guys can have a look at the fly around 360 degrees more or less. That is in the middle, so I'm going to trim it to where it's just past the hackle feather. And I'm going to trim it to different lengths. And it just gives it a little bit of sparkle to catch the fish's eye. Trout, apparently, from what I've read, have the best eyes in the fish world. In freshwater lakes. I don't know. That's just what I read. Okay, so there it is. There's the fly, and I'm going to use the lacquer to seal it up. I'm going to put a couple of drops on the head and let it absorb into the feathers. I've never had a fly come apart doing this, and before when I used to buy store-bought flies, I mean, they used to come apart like on the 3rd or 4th cast. Sometimes even sooner. Sometimes you'd just have a big fluffy torn up looking thing by the end of 5 or 6 casts. I guess that's why you start tying flies and, you know, find the best ways to do everything. And if the lacquer does glue the eye of the hook together, I carry a needle with me where I can clean out the eye. And most of the line trimmers usually come with a little poker at the back, or you can use another hook from another fly and just, you know, clean out that eye. And that's the done fly. It's just a woolly bugger. It's a wine color red bead woolly bugger. And the fish in Sealey Lake just go crazy for that fly. I usually keep 5 or 6 of them, and there's a smaller size, same thing, just a smaller hook. This time I thought I'd try something a little bigger because I was kind of hoping to catch some bigger trout, because there's some monsters in that lake. Well, there it is, guys. Thanks for watching the fly. I should have a whole bunch more videos at the end of at least 4 or 5 fish that I brought in just a few days ago. Yeah, maybe I'll have some more voice commentary for that too. Thanks for watching the fly tying. I hope the fly works for you if you get to make one and use it. I usually tie them in a bunch of different colors, and they're a great search pattern. Of course, you can always, you know, either if you're going to keep the fish, gut it and cut the stomach open and find out what they're eating, or, you know, try different flies. These things were full of snails this time. The first time, a few weeks ago when it was still cold, they seemed to have a lot of I didn't put one under the microscope and I kind of regret it, but they look like little tiny freshwater shrimp is what they resemble. The same color and the same kind of a look to them. So I'm not sure. I really kind of regret I didn't zoom in on it with my phone or use a microscope, but their bellies were just full of these little things that looked like freshwater shrimp. Anyways, enjoy the rest of the video. There's a bunch there with me catching fish at Sealey Lake. Well, that wasn't the first fish of the day, but I think that was about the second one when I realized that I should probably set up the camera and get this on film. I don't know why the video turned out red like this. It wasn't done on purpose. It's kind of ironic that the fly's a wine color, so the entire video turned out wine color. I reset the camera and things went back to normal now. But unfortunately, the entire trip of me on the lake catching these fish is wine color. Somewhat ironic, but there's not much I can do. Anyways, that was a decent fish. At the end of the video, there's a picture of all the fish that were brought in. Mostly this is just going to be clips of fish being pulled in because, I mean, I didn't want to show you guys hours of me trolling around or casting or checking out spots on the fish finder. They were fairly hungry this time around. Usually I notice the fly fishing ends once things get warm. Maybe in another month or so, when the weather warms up and the sun comes out and the water gets hotter, they just sort of die for me for fly fishing. I still saw people out there with lures and they were happy that they were getting fish, but maybe that's the difference. You need to jig for them later on because they're down deep or something. There's a nice little brookie. Those are very good eating, and I usually get a couple of them every trip. This is probably another rainbow. It's predominantly rainbows in this lake. There's a lake across from Sealey on the highway, and it's full of tiger trout, so I've read. I haven't talked to anybody that's caught any there. Last weekend, a bunch of guys that I talked to were going over there to try, but I went home, and I guess they told me if they see me around, they will let me know how that lake is. But there's no way to drive up to it, so you pretty much have to assemble a boat. You're not allowed to use motors in it, so I guess it would be kind of a light pack. You just have to roll the boat in there, and my boat does have two big sort of wheels at the back, and if it's light enough and just paddling, yeah, you could potentially roll it into that lake. I didn't really want to try this by myself, just because, I don't know, didn't feel like it, but one day I will take a walk to this lake and see what it looks like in there. What would really be nice is to have a camera person in the boat with me, because the camera is sort of stationary on the mount at the front of the boat, and once I get a fish on, I don't really have a lot of time to focus on things or follow the fish around with the camera. So what you get is what you get. Maybe eventually I will find a camera person that wants to come fishing with me and take turns filming each other's catches. And I think that's a fairly decent rainbow. There was a lot of fish that got away from me because the fly falls out the majority of the time. Even in the net, I've only maybe had 3 or 4 fish where I've actually had to take the hemostats and take the fly out of them. It's very non-destructive for the fish, and if you're doing a lot of catch and release, taking the barb off the fly is an amazing way to release these trout. And I decided to keep 5 for myself, because, well, I like fish, and that's what they're in there for. So usually I catch at least 3 times my limit in this lake with this fly. Sometimes trolling, sometimes casting. There's a few spots that are very productive around the lake that I've known, but I've been going to this lake since I was in high school, I believe. It's in the Narrow Hills Provincial Park, and there are a lot of trout lakes up there, and I fished a few of them and camped at a lot of them, and it's a beautiful area to just go up and tent in. I'm not much of a camper kind of person, but tenting is great in that area. A lot of nice spots and a lot of really great fishing. There's brook trout and rainbows and splake and tiger trout and probably even more that I haven't looked up. But oh, and lake trout. There's Little Bear Lake up there with lake trout, and I fished there quite a few years ago, and we caught a bunch. They were nice. They were decent sized fish. This was before I was into fly fishing, so I don't know, it was kind of boring and, well, not as much fun as fly fishing. And once again, yeah, I'd like to apologize for the red videos. I'm not sure what was going on there. I mean, I don't know, some sort of irony to do with the wine-colored fly. But either way, I caught a bunch of fish and I had a good time. And oh, look at that one jump. There was a lot of jumpers, and sometimes they jump and your fly goes wah across the bow of the boat and lands on the other side, and it was a disappointment. I probably lost about 10 fish, brought in 5 or 6, and let go of a bunch more. There's some fairly big fish in this lake too. I was thinking of scaling up the fly size to see if that would do anything. If I do go back to this lake, I will try a bigger fly and see what happens, and a bigger rod, and talk to some guys that were fishing around there, and they showed me where they were and where they were catching the fish. And well, this is the end of the trip. I'm driving to the boat launch. I'll give you guys a shot of the motor again, because that's kind of what's making this fishing experience possible. My little boat, it's a lot of fun, and it's a great boat because I can stand and cast out of the deck. It's got an aluminum floor, which is beautiful because I can stand it, I can fly fish out of it, you know, and not just troll around, even though it's fun to troll around and explore the lake just as much as it is to stand around and cast. At the end of the video, there is just a shot of the fish that were caught on this trip that I kept for myself. And well, if you guys go there, enjoy it, have a great time, and enjoy the lake.